Hey there, welcome back. I'm Bob, and today I'll be presenting a PowerPoint about the quantum and what it means to collapse a wave. So let me share my screen and let's dive in. All right, so in striving to keep this simple, we have two primary models of reality, quantum and Newtonian, which is just a model of what we know today. 10 years from now, this may be obsolete, because the truth is, we probably don't know the truth. If we go back to school and physics, we were taught that the world as we know it, this third-dimensional physical reality, is made up of atoms. And we were taught what atoms are comprised of and how they were structured. It may have been the 1911 nuclear model or the 1913 planetary model. Well, guess what? Today, scientists know that this isn't true. It's not even close to being true. That reality as we know it is far different. And currently we believe it may be more like the quantum cloud model, which could be pear-shaped. And we have these two models of reality. Metaphysical reality, which we're unable to observe, and physical reality, which we perceive through our 5 physical senses. Now, within these two models, we have these fundamental building blocks that are made up of waves, which are frequency, and then matter made from atoms, molecules, and particles. So here is a wave measured by frequency over time. With its peaks and troughs, the highs and lows, which we'll get into in a minute. And the older model of the atom has something in the middle called the nucleus. And there's an electron that buzzes around the outside, which is kind of the prevailing model. Science has proven this isn't true. Actually, the electron doesn't orbit, but instead appears in a specific location. And that location is, well, where you look at it. This is known as the observer effect. And they noticed that the electron would appear anywhere in this sphere called a field of possibility or field of potentiality. And to give size context here, if the nucleus was the size of a blueberry and the outer edge of where the electron could appear in that field of possibility would be something like the outer edge of a baseball stadium, with the blueberry being on the center of the field. And this atom is said to have 99.99999% space. Now, understanding that level of context, this electron could potentially appear in an infinite amount of places. So then, where does it show up? Well, it shows up where the observer of that experiment intends it to show up. So wherever the observer intends it to appear, that's where it appears. And when the observer is not looking, it reverts back into a wave. So when you're not observing into reality linked with your intention, it then reverts back into a metaphysical state. Are you still with me? Hang in there. So everything starts as a wave. Everything in the physical world is subject to the law of impermanence. The law of impermanence is also known as the philosophical problem of change, which is a central part of human life. Everything keeps changing, whether we're aware of it or not. And this can be perceived as a dilemma to many of us who are constantly wanting certainty. Nothing in the physical world lasts forever. There's a constant birth, death, and creation process that's going on at the subatomic level all the time. If you ask quantum physicists, they'll tell you, we have particles popping in and out of existence into a vacuum, and they have no understanding of why. Now, you take this wave here, and when we observe the wave, it collapses. That's called collapsing the waveform. It collapses into a particle based upon our intention. I think of it as coming into fruition. Now, when you collapse the wave into matter and thinking of it turning into a particle, coming to fruition, into matter, you're manifesting into reality. Subconsciously, we're manifesting all the time. Take a look around you and notice what you've manifested. Is it time to consciously choose differently and change your thoughts? So is there a link between thoughts and circumstantial reality? 100%. There is no reality. There is only life subject to circumstance. Reality is how things should be. It's never how they will be. Manifestation is mainly about three things: belief, intention, and focused attention, which is very much associated with heart coherence, which is alignment between the heart, mind, emotions, and physical systems. And there's a lot of research from the Heart Math Institute on this, which is why positive thinking alone doesn't present results, as you need alignment. Drop from the mind and believe with the heart, and then you'll see it. Breathing exercises like breath work and even meditation can help immensely with heart coherence and helping with that alignment. Now, what do we mean when we intend or have intention? How do you intend? Well, okay, so what is intend? I've got news for you. We don't know. You see, the closest we can get is a label. That's what the left brain likes. So if I wanted to raise my arm, what actually raises my arm? What do you think is the actual thing or process that raises my arm? Okay, tension, muscles, heart, soul, brain, neural impulses. There are many different answers. See, many scientists would say that what raises the arm is an electrical impulse generated by the cerebral cortex in the brain, which travels down through the nervous system, through the spine, down the arm, and boom, the muscles react to that input. Other people say it's the thought of the arm that raises it. But if I'm thinking of raising my arm, does it raise? No. I'm thinking about it right now. Oh, so it must be an electrical impulse then? No. That's simply what happens after the fact. What links the thought to the action? On that point, traditional science is pretty silent because it doesn't know. The closest we can come to that answer is a label we call intention. We intend. Intention is the link. Now, what is intention? It's kind of a concentrated level of will, pushed into some level of action, but it's a bridge between the thought and the movement. Would you agree? Now, when we intend anything, we have an impact on reality that can be measured under a microscope called the observer effect. That's the micro level. At the macro level, we have what's called reality. One of the great philosophers, William James, father of modern psychology, said toward the end of his life, he was asked this question: what has been the greatest discovery in your lifetime? Without hesitation, he answered, a person can change his life, the circumstances of his life, by changing the attitude of his mind. In other words, the daily thoughts you think will create certain circumstances linked to that. We now know that in physics, it's what mysticism and New Age people have been talking about all along. Science provides validation for people that are more left brain dominant. Right brain people knew this already and didn't need proof. So if we know that the primary pattern of the universe is the wave, we can start to understand things at a different level. Now here's where it gets more interesting. If we know that everything exists first as a wave, and then as a particle, and a particle has a finite lifespan, which it's affected by the consciousness of the observer looking at that particle. So then, does a tree fall in the forest if nobody's there? No, it doesn't actually, as we find out. But that creates a duality of life, physical and metaphysical. We as human beings are the encapsulation of the physical and the metaphysical in this experience we call life, are we not? Do we have a physical body? Absolutely. But do we also experience stuff that is metaphysical? How about our dreams? Dreams are metaphysical. Can we put them in a bag and sell them? No, not at all. Can we touch, smell, and see them? No, but we experience them. Are they real? Absolutely. They're generated out of some level of consciousness beyond the physical. So then we start to understand that there's a physical and a metaphysical, which the metaphysical is this area that gives birth to the physical. Every particle begins as a wave, not the other way around. Are you still with me? Are you starting to see some insights in using this to our advantage? So now for some basic points and some practical insights into how to use this to our advantage. As we think, so shall we become. Our life is what our thoughts make of it all day long. Every single spiritual teacher has said the same thing. How you think determines what happens. But what you think in itself doesn't have enough force or power. So then besides thinking those thoughts, what else has to happen? Alignment. As soon as you align, you send a broadcast signal into the field of possibilities, and the field will respond to your thoughts if they are powered by an emotional connection. And we're doing it based upon how we collapse these waves at the quantum level into reality, bringing to fruition. Now, this atom is a lower frequency, and you may think mass is solid. It's not. Scientists agree that it's actually waves condensed into a fixed pattern called particles, and it's vibrating and constantly moving. And this is essentially what the physical world is. It's condensed waves slowed down into fixed patterns that we call particles, atoms, and have mass. Now, when you raise your frequency, as in this wave, you're lighter. So if you raise your frequency to be more as a wave, and the wave is how frequency is measured, as such, you can raise your frequency to higher levels of vibration using emotions, which is energy in motion. So using elevated emotions like gratitude, joy, fulfillment, compassion, and unconditional love, all these carry a high frequency. Now you'll feel lighter during these moments as those frequencies radiate out and they affect people and animals. Now, if you have a low frequency, such as fear, anger, guilt, shame, jealousy, humiliation, all of that stuff has a low frequency. When you lower the frequency, the higher the mass. Therefore, it has gravitational effect, not radiational effect. So you'll feel heavier. You don't have to validate this, as it's how you feel. And I'm sure we all have felt this. And this all comes into understanding frequency. Now, the wave is the primary pattern of life. It's everywhere, such as sound wave, light wave, microwave, radio wave, and so on. The wave is the primary path. The higher your frequency, the more you're a wave. You're in the quantum. The lower your frequency, the more your mass. You're in the Newtonian model. For simplicity's sake, on the left here, I propose these 4 basic levels of consciousness, starting from the bottom. First is to me, victim mode, followed by me, responsibility, then through me, surrender, and finally, as me, I am oneness. And we have this sliding scale of consciousness, ranging from 20 to 1,000 on the right, destructive to creative, fear at the bottom, and love up top. Now that we know this, we can start looking at levels of consciousness much differently. What I want to do here is show you a model as a graph. And we have time horizontally at the bottom with frequencies, cycles vertically on the left. Now, since we know that the primary pattern of the universe is a wave, the lower the frequency, the longer the wave over time. As mentioned earlier, waves are measured in peaks and troughs, highs and lows, and we measure frequency in cycles per second. It takes a long time in a low frequency to get from one cycle to another. Are you with me so far? So the to me, victim mode here, is the lowest frequency of the 4 basic levels of consciousness. And how does it feel to be in to me? Well, you have low energy, low frequency, a victim mindset, and therefore very gravitational and slow. If you raise that frequency, as shown in the green waveform here, the wave peaks get pushed closer together. So it takes less time for a peak-to-peak cycle to appear, as compared to the orange low-frequency waveform where nothing much happens over time. Everything is slow. Now, when you start moving into by me, it can operate up to 10 times the frequency of to me, which is why 1 hour in by me gets more accomplished than sitting there complaining for 10 hours in to me. I think we'll all agree on that, right? Yep. So by me has a different frequency than to me, right? You bet. And when we are in by me states, we are in go mode. And through control, we choose how we create our reality. This is hard work, isn't sustainable, and the body eventually breaks down. So for example, anger has a much higher frequency than fear. So anger can be useful if it's channeled. If it becomes disruptive, it's not, but it's still a higher level of frequency. Okay, here we have through me, which has 10 times the frequency of by me. In other words, 1 hour in through me can achieve the same amount in your life as 10 hours in by me, or 100 hours in to me. So if you know how to get into through me by raising your frequency, then at that point you'll start attracting by collapsing the wave and bringing to fruition whatever it is, by flowing with the river and going downstream a lot quicker. And again, a 1 hour cycle in through me would be the equivalent of 10 times the frequency in by me, or 100 times in to me, and it's very powerful. Innovators, musicians, and writers have said that their ideas, music, and stories came through them as if by accident. Now in by me, you can go out and swim upstream and make 50 sales calls, or you can be in through me and meet one person through a friend who just happened to introduce you, or you meet someone while standing in line at Starbucks, the grocery store, or whatever, and they become the same level of customer as those sales calls. We've all had experiences like that because we've all stumbled into through me, usually by accident, and then wonder why it isn't there anymore, because we don't know how to maintain it. Now, 1 hour in as me will be the same as 10 hours in through me, which would be 100 hours in by me and 1,000 hours in to me. And the speed at which you manifest things is dependent on what level of consciousness you're in. Now you can see why one high-frequency spiritual person can lift an entire room of low-frequency people, because it's logarithmic. One person vibrating as me can create a spiritual religious movement that lasts for centuries. It's all about vibrational frequency. As me is a spiritual experience, a blurring of the personal self and a connection with oneness, the freedom from separation and the disillusion from the ego. It's the greatest of human possibilities. In this state, we cultivate boundless love and appreciation. Nothing is lacking, we have no nagging wants, and no need to alter where and who we already are. In this physical world, we understand frequency, harmonics, and resonance very well. The metaphysical world operates very similar. There are many similar rules and laws in the metaphysical world that translate and carry over to the physical world, but they're all not identical, because the physical world, the laws that we study, most often are what's known as classic Newtonian physics. Now, the metaphysical world is not subject to low-frequency laws. If you want to create a business, or if you want to create something in the physical world, you're dealing with physical laws. There's resistance. It's low frequency by its very nature. And that's okay, because that's where we're at. Everything starts as a wave and then becomes a particle, not the other way around. So it makes sense that some of these laws carry over. Now, money itself is actually metaphysical. It's conceptual. But for most people, their physical bank account is something that they attribute to the physical world. And if you're dealing in actual precious stones, metals, or anything on paper, it's physical. We attribute that to the physical world. Now, we also have emotional bank accounts, which lives in the metaphysical. So now can you see why the metaphysical gives birth to the physical? So your emotional bank account needs to come first. then your financial bank account follows. Most people have it linked the other way around. They have their financial bank account linked to their emotional bank account. And that's great if you want to live and buy me. The challenge with that is, it's hard work. So in this analogy, if the world is a mirror, two mirrors, the metaphysical world is the creator of the reflection, and the physical world is what reflects back. Make sense? Unfortunately, most people, when they're sucked into the physical world and stay low frequency, what happens is they start to essentially respond to the reflection rather than create the reflection. Many will say the circumstances of my life is what drives me to make the next move on the board. The problem with that is that you're only creating more of the same. Hence, most people's lives are like Groundhog Day. Different person, but same relationship. Different business, but same financial status. So if you can start to realize that we can shift our focus from, instead of chasing the reflection, what is what most people do, to creating the reflection, would that not be more useful? So then we have this delay in creation of collapsing the wave into fruition. And the challenge is this. There is a delay from the creation of the image to the development of the reflection. In quantum physics, they call that the quantum to Newtonian transition point. And the reason for that is because it takes time to drop down through the frequencies to manifest in the lower frequency reality. If we don't see immediate results, we get despondent, right? Because we didn't know or forget there is a transition point. Interesting, right? Now, very similar to developing photograph film in a darkroom, the image slowly came through. Remember those days? And what happened? The image gradually started to develop and come through, which was termed developing photographs. So when we put a signal out with heart and mind alignment, and then broadcast that signal, it goes out just like turning the wheel on a large oil tanker ship. It takes time to turn, as it's simply dropping down through the frequencies and transitioning from the quantum into the Newtonian. But we never give it enough time because we're too busy being sucked into the reflection. Make sense? Here's another way to explain this. Coming back to the physical world. The physical world is subject to certain laws. That's, well, we're very familiar with. We don't think twice in our level of knowing when it comes to accepting certain physical laws. We don't hope, we don't believe, we don't have faith, we just know. And exercise is a great analogy for this. If we go to the gym and we train, do we instantly see results? No, it takes time. Stay committed and consistent, and for the most part, within 6 to 8 weeks, we start seeing results. And the same thing goes for the metaphysical gym too. See, in the physical world, we understand this. We don't question it. But the physical world is born from the metaphysical. There's a lot of carryover, a lot of similar laws. We understand it in the physical gym, but we forget about it in the metaphysical gym. The higher your vibration, as in through me, the less time it takes to manifest. So if we go to our metaphysical gym, where we get ourselves in a positive frame of mind, we access higher states of vibration like gratitude, love, and joy. And then something I also suggest is reconnecting with our positive memories. And you will feel lighter doing that. You'll start to experience a higher frequency. That's basic physics. You started accessing joy, fulfillment, gratitude, love, and so on. You can't feel low frequency if you're in a high frequency. At that point, you'll start radiating out, and a huge amount of radiational energy can be felt physically by others, like when you enter a social gathering. Accordingly, you will gain enough evidence to start understanding there is a correlation between the physical and the metaphysical, which starts now, that you can control, that you have access to, and it responds to you. You're not a victim of circumstance, and you're not trying to fight the battle with life. And again, this is basic science. And we can't argue with that once we understand how the physical and metaphysical worlds are connected. So I leave you with this. The two things in life you are in control over is your attitude and your efforts. In the quantum, everything is possible. And this is just some of the work that I do. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. You'll find more of my work from my webpage, robertjnesbitt.com, or at Gut Heal Me on Instagram. Much love, light, and joy to you all.